friends! Today I'm doing a different video that I've been meaning to film for a hot second. I've mentioned here and there that I have generalized anxiety disorder. I've dealt with it all throughout college and high school. I was going to do a video about how I manage my anxiety with college, and as I was thinking up that video and I was getting ready to plan it out, I posted on Instagram if anyone had any specific questions or topics they wanted me to discuss, and pretty much everything everyone sent in was stuff I was already going to talk about. So rather than doing my own sit-down video with bulleted points about what I want to talk to you about, this whole video is just going to be a Q&A. Now, I'm not a therapist or a counselor, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that these are end-all cures to everything that you're experiencing, but as a senior in college and after my relapse last year where I almost dropped out, I just wanted to be a spokesperson for how I made it through and hopefully give you some helpful advice. I know there's lots of incoming freshmen that are very afraid, so hopefully I can just impart some comfort to let you know that you can do it. So the first question I have is how to deal with pressure from parents and family to succeed. So in high school, I really didn't give a damn about school and grades. I don't know what happened when I came to college, but something just snapped and I was like, okay, I'm not competing against my sister anymore. This is all me. My mom's not here to tell me to do my homework. I gotta get on it. And I think that being at college and being independent where you don't have your parents over your shoulder being like, do your homework, do this, it's a lot more freeing, which could be a good or bad thing. I remember whenever I was applying to college, my mom really wanted me to be in the honors program, and I just put my foot down. I was like, there's no way, I'm not smart enough for that. It requires so much that I don't want to do, and it just seems so scary. I hated her for making me do it. I was so mad that she made me put in that application and that I actually got in, and I had all these additional responsibilities to go to, and I had this weird orientation thing before school started that I didn't know where it was, and I didn't know anyone there. In that regard, I think it was something that helped me. Back to your original question, I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. If they're putting unrealistic expectations on you, then you can distance yourself from that and just make sure that you're doing what you're capable of doing at the best quality you can. But maybe you did what I did and you're underselling yourself, and maybe you can do more than you're capable of. The next question, Adventures in Pages asked, studying while you're anxious or depressed. I feel this one so hard. Whenever you're anxious or whenever you don't want to get out of bed, there's no motivation to do anything. For me, when I'm anxious, I don't want to leave my room. I just want to use my distractions and my coping mechanisms, and I don't want to think about school or anything else. But also I do get a lot of motivation and relief and comfort from getting up out of my space. And if I'm laying down in bed all day feeling really anxious, even just standing up is something that's kind of relieving to me, even though it's a scary thought to leave the comfort of my bed. The way I recommend is don't look at studying as this massive ginormous task and you have this thing to do, this thing to do, this thing to do, this thing to do, this stack of note cards to memorize. Think of it as getting up is step 1, finding a place to study is step 2, sitting down with your materials is step 3, and just take it step by step with steps that are that small. I'm a huge fan of flashcards, so flashcards for me are really therapeutic to write out and to be able to study with myself, or if I'm feeling up to being around people, it's also a good way to get interaction and study with other people. Something that's weird about my anxiety is I actually get some relief in being around people. So even though I might be socially anxious some days and I want to stay in my room and I don't want to have to interact with people, other days it's comforting for me to have just another body in the room with me, someone I can talk to. If you're in a headspace where you just cannot focus, try and initiate someone else to do that with you. Olivia Lily Grissom said, how do you keep from getting overwhelmed, which can make your anxiety worse? This is something I talked about a lot with my counselor whenever I was doing counseling a couple semesters ago, because that was a huge concern that I had. The thing that's the most comforting for me is to be able to have a notebook or a planner or some type of bullet journal system where I can just list what I'm doing. For me, I'm more able to plan out, okay, I'm gonna do this here, I'm gonna do this here, this event occurs on this date, and it's so much more useful for me to see it out on one page. It's much more confusing and stressful for me to just have it in my head thinking, oh my gosh, I have all this to do, and you try not to forget any of it and you don't want to get behind. Having it written down helps. Wallflower asked, what do you do or how do you cope if you get anxiety during class and need to leave? This situation is one of the most terrifying things that I've known. The worst feeling is when you're sitting in class and you're just stuck in a desk staring at a board or your teacher and you just feel like you want to die. It's a feeling I would not wish on anyone. I'm sure if you're watching this, you know about it. If you're at college, you spend a lot of time in class, so if you have anxiety and you get anxiety during class, this is something you should really prepare for. The first thing I did as soon as I had a really bad relapse of my anxiety was I made my professors aware. I specifically emailed my English teachers and I said, if I have to leave class, if I'm not there, this is why. I go to a small-ish university, so maybe they were more catering toward me because I was part of a smaller class, but I had really understanding professors who were willing to bend over backwards to help me feel comfortable in class. I had a professor that seated me at the door and said, feel free to get up and leave whenever you need to. I think making your professors aware, if you're comfortable, obviously, is step number one, because that just opens a lot of doors for possibilities. If you need accommodations, they're willing to work with you. Also, take it in stages. I don't think as soon as you have anxiety, you need to get up and leave and go back to your room. I think maybe bring a water bottle with you, and if you ever start to feel really anxious, go and refill your water bottle, splash water on your face, drink water, and take a quick walk around. Because for me, I find that stimulation and getting up out of that environment that's giving me anxiety is relieving, even if I have to go straight back and sit back down in the chair, just for that minute of walking around, getting fresh air. Sitting in one place and just staring at a board while I'm feeling anxious just makes me spiral. So if I'm able to break that and get up and get out of my space and go do something for a couple minutes and come back, Gucci. And if all goes to shit and you have to leave the classroom, at the end of the day, it's college. Just be responsible and make sure that anything you miss, you get from your professor. Okay, this is a good next question. Evil Ducks said, how do you tell your professors about your anxiety? Like I said, I sent an email. Because professors are often a little bit clueless about it, I sent an email to each of my professors and I put an explanation at the top of the page that was like, hey, I have generalized anxiety disorder. I just wanted you to be aware that this may affect my attendance and performance in this class. I'm taking all preventative measures just to make sure that I can do as much as I can and be on time and complete assignments, but because I'm experiencing such and such symptoms, I may need accommodations, such as I did a list of a couple of things that I wanted to warn the professors might happen, including having to get up and leave class, having to refill my water, maybe having to bring my knitting to class just for something to do with my hands to calm myself. And then I just said, thank you for understanding. I'll talk to you in person if you'd like, but I hope that we can have a good semester because I really just want to succeed. And I think that's what I would drive home, is say, I'm not telling you this as an excuse for bad attendance or bad quality of work, which is why you should send this at the beginning of the semester, just because it's a preventative measure to say, hey, I want to do good in this class. I'm not doing my best at the moment, but I hope we can work through that and have a good semester. The biggest question I got over and over was how to make new friends, how to make new friends, how to interact with people, how to do things. Everyone at the beginning of college is so concerned that they're not going to find their group, they're going to hate their roommate, they're not going to find anyone in their classes, they're not going to know anyone on campus. But that's how every single freshman's feeling. They don't know if they're going to find their friends, they don't know anyone on campus at all. And for me, it was a lot of loneliness at first because this is going to sound cliche, but I get so anxious when I have to do small talk. When I was a freshman, I hated small talk. I could not keep a conversation going to save my life. It just made me feel awkward. I felt like I wasn't even connecting with a person because I felt like anyone I had small talk with, I was never going to be friends with because it was just so awkward. My current roommate, best friend at college, previous roommate is Kaylin. Our freshman year, the first time that we ever hung out, we went and got lunch together in the dining hall, and it was the most awkward experience of my life. And I say that not to scare you away from going to get lunch with people or trying to be friends with people, but it's gonna be weird in the beginning, and everyone feels that wiggle room trying to accommodate to getting into a new place and not really having any best friends when you move here. The best advice is advice that's gonna suck, but it's just wait it out. You're gonna get past the small talk. Also, something I realized about making friends that I wish someone would have told me is that the friends you make freshman year are not the only friends you'll have your entire college career. But when you first start college, you're getting through all of your basics. So you're gonna be in larger classes with people you're probably never gonna see again. As soon as you get to your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you get into the classes in your major, which is putting you around like-minded people who want to do the same thing, who see each other in all their different classes, and those are gonna be your besties. I'm not saying that the people I met freshman year are just poo-poo butkus and we don't care about them anymore, but if you don't make friends your freshman year, or you're not really connecting with people your freshman year, you will. And if anything, Just join stuff on campus. If you're an English major like me, join your English Honor Society, join your literary magazine, join your newspaper, join your writing center. It's good on a resume and you see people more often. Maria Dunn asked about presentations. I've been fortunate to be an English major, so I don't do a ton of presentations, but I have done several in my time in core classes. I used to be a mass comm major. That was a whole experience. The thing I've learned is that when I'm presenting in front of a class of people I know, it's dope. Everyone knows you and there's no judgment, and I'm far less nervous giving a speech or showing a PowerPoint to people in the classes in my major just because we all know one another. As far as being an underclassman and doing for presentations in classes I don't particularly care about or people that I don't know, especially like doing presentations in German, just prepare. Write your slides, and then before you present it, go through your PowerPoint the way you're going to present it in your head or out loud. Just say what you want to say. Make a note card of bullet points you want to hit. I think inevitably I always say something dumb where I mess up my words. I do this thing where when I'm in front of people, my voice just abruptly cuts off and I have to swallow, then say, excuse me, then like keep going, and it's really awkward and uncomfortable and I can't get myself to stop doing it. I also sweat like a monster when I'm presenting because I just get so nervous. I think it's natural for anyone to feel nervous when they're giving a presentation, but just know that if you prepare beforehand and then you remind yourself that everyone in the class has to do it as well and you're not the only one that's nervous, you'll be fine. Also, no one really cares. I know you might be someone like me who like 20 hours after I do something embarrassing, I still think about it. The other day when I was talking to a group of people about our literary magazine, I accidentally called one of my professors a mister, which is so embarrassing, but like it doesn't matter. No one else but me is thinking about that mistake. Siani Alexandria asked how to pluck up courage to see a counselor while in college. I've gone to the counseling center for 3 semesters and I'm not gonna lie, every time it's a little bit intimidating. The first time I ever called our counseling center, I was terrified. But my counseling center secretary, the person who answers the phones, is so sweet and accommodating. They're not here to judge you, they're just here to help. The thing that I had to grapple with when I was deciding to go to my counselor, and the thing that motivated me to do it, was I can either keep suffering and keep having these unhealthy spirals and keep not having any sort of plan to turn to, or I could just do it. And so I decided to book an appointment and just talk. And that's what I would use my appointments for, is I would just sit down and just vent. So I would highly recommend it. Again, each time I've gone back has just been very rewarding. The morning that I woke up with a really bad relapse and I was about to throw up because I was so anxious and I didn't even want to get out of bed, it kind of pushed me to the point of it's now or never. Without even having time to be nervous about it, I just called the counseling center and I said, I need to meet with a nurse practitioner so I can get medicine. And that was the move that I made toward actually getting medication for my anxiety. That could be a whole video by itself, but it's something that has helped me unspeakably huge amounts. Which transitions to a next question by Van Anna. Have you tried medication for your anxiety? Yes. I know there's split opinions on whether or not medication is good or not for anxiety. Some people are afraid of it, some people go for it. The way that I describe taking medicine for me is that no anxiety is right here and high anxiety is like out the roof. So before I was on medication, if I was having a really bad anxiety day, I would just go from 0 to 3,000 in one breath, and I would just be so anxious that I wouldn't want to leave, I wouldn't want to go to class, I'd just be crying and calling my mom like I don't know what to do. And every time that I would get anxious, I would just spiral into an anxiety attack, and then I would exhaust myself and I would just want to crawl into bed. But now that I'm on medication, I feel like my medication gives me like a roof to my anxiety. So I can get a spike in my anxiety, but then it stops at a certain level. So I would still feel anxiety and I would feel anxious, but not to the point where it was debilitating, where I was throwing up. And that's the best way I can describe it. I had no personality changes, nothing really changed with me, I had no side effects. I was also prescribed Xanax for whenever I have panic attacks and I'm in class, or just emergency situations where I just need something to calm me down quickly because I'm having an anxiety attack. I will never forget the story that my counselor told me about this. He said that he once had a patient who was a young girl in high school who would have panic attacks every single day and would have her mom pick her up. So he prescribed her Xanax and they just kept one tablet in the nurse's office in case she needed it. She could just go to the nurse and take it. And ever since that day, just knowing that she had a Xanax antipsychotics that she could take if she were to have a panic attack, she didn't have a panic attack. And that's exactly how I feel. I have a little pill compact that I keep a couple of those pills in, and I carry it with me everywhere. If I'm in class, I have it with me. If I go to an event, I have it with me. And that's just a shield against if I were to get bad right now. I have this solution. I will always be a spokesperson for medication. I know there's probably going to be people that disagree with that. I'm sure there's studies and stuff I haven't read about medication being bad, but for me it's helped immensely. And if you have access to a nurse practitioner in your counseling center, or if you have access to healthcare or anything and you want to try medication, I say go for it. Aniel Lou, sorry if I said that username wrong, asked how to get over the initial physical sickness feeling part. So before last year, my anxiety was only ever just like butterflies in my chest, butterflies in my stomach, maybe a stomach ache, or intense feelings of like I was swimming and my head was foggy. But whenever I relapsed last year, I had completely new symptoms where I was just dry heaving all the time. Backstory about me, I have really severe emetophobia, which means I cannot stand throw up. If I see someone throw up, or I like hear them gag, or they look like they're about to be ill, it gives me panic. I panic whenever I feel nauseous or I think I'm gonna throw up, because I hate it so much. The fact that I was getting these symptoms was something that was just building on to my anxiety, because I did not want to throw up, and I've heard that people with severe anxiety throw up, and so I just dreaded it. And I was never nauseous really, but it was just this reflex where if I unclenched my teeth, I would just start dry heaving. To this day, it still happens if I get really anxious before my job interview over the summer. I was gagging in the car ride on the way there. It's just something that happens to me. But the thing that I discovered is, first of all, if I stopped trying to hold it back, it got better. Because whenever I first experienced it, I would just lay in bed with my jaw clenched, trying not to think of anything, just like desperately wishing myself to stop getting that reflex. And I would just make myself even more miserable while trying to push it down. As soon as I would unclench my jaw, take deep breaths, and just let my body do the reflex, it would subside and the anxiety would go down. The second thing I learned is that I would never actually throw up. I've never thrown up because of anxiety as of date. Maybe one day I'll get lucky. But because I was able to just like calm down and let myself go through the motions of whatever physical symptoms I was feeling, I realized I never actually was going to throw up. It was just a reflex my body needed to do as a response to stress. But your original question, how to get over it, just let yourself, if you're not in public, let yourself be sick. Pushing it back and trying not to have that just makes you even more miserable. So let your body get it out of your system. Second of all, I bought a case of ginger ale that I would save for special occasions. Sometimes I would pour ginger ale into a coffee mug, like a travel mug, and take it to class with me. And no one knew, and I was just doing it to settle my stomach, and it did help. That, along with eating goldfish and crackers and other little bland things. First of all, stop fighting the feeling, and then getting up and walking around. I'm just gonna keep saying that because it's such an underrated piece of advice, but it's so easy and it helped me a lot. And I know sometimes getting up and walking around feels like this insurmountable task, but it can really just flip a switch in your brain and help reset your bodily functions. Make a goal as simple as that, just to get up and walk across your room, and then you can go back and lay down. But see if it helps, because sometimes it does for me. Foxhole Court asks, did you push yourself out of your comfort zone? If so, how? The moment that my parents left my dorm room and I was on my own, I was out of my comfort zone. Even this semester, I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone because I have a new job where I'm required to attend events with my students. Sometimes getting yourself out of your comfort zone just means like accepting a new job and getting rewarded for that. The thing is, you just have to say yes to more things. I got into a period last year, my junior year, where all my friends would go and do stuff and I would be like, no, I'm gonna stay in and read or FaceTime my friend, which I'm not disqualifying the gratification of just staying in and reading a book. It's a good ass time, but make sure that every now and then when people offer you things or you have opportunities come your way or so-and-so people are doing an activity, go with them and just try it. There will be a lot of opportunities for you to get out of your comfort zone. You just have to be the one to push yourself or tell your friends that they need to push you out of your comfort zone. Disgust and Gucci asked, how do you deal with feeling alone and not having your parents there? This is a big concern that I had freshman year. I was so reliant on my mom and my parents when I was in high school. I hadn't cooked a meal for myself in my life. I had just gotten my license like 6 months before I went to college. I felt so dependent on my parents, and it was terrifying for me to think like, oh, now I'm gonna have to be the one that like goes and talks to people about things, and I have to initiate doing all this stuff for myself, and I was not used to it whatsoever, and I was so sure I was gonna crash and burn and I would just have a horrible time in college. But the opposite is true. I thought it was gonna be horrible and I would want my mom there and I would be so miserable all the time without her. In reality, college gives you this sigh of relief because you have so much independence. I like the fact that I can be unmonitored and I can make my own decisions. It's very freeing. But missing your parents and feeling alone is something that's very natural, and once again, it's one of those universal college experiences. The biggest thing that helps me get through that is I'm constantly FaceTiming and texting my mom. If you have any sort of technology that allows you to talk with your parents, do it as often as possible. And same with feeling alone. Every time that I felt like all my friends on campus were gone, or I felt like I didn't have any friends, turning to internet friends or turning to old friends, or really just relying on the people that I know but don't have with me at college and FaceTiming them or calling them or texting them, that was very soothing for me. The people that you meet on campus, even though they might just be acquaintances or people you've talked to just a handful of times in class, never be afraid to reach out to them, because who knows, they could be feeling the same way, or they don't have that many friends themselves, and maybe you sending off that text to meet up and have lunch is something that can make their day. Another question I got after this one's from Emily McMartin. She says, how do you deal with it in general, and how do you deal with a panic attack? This is a question that you could answer in its own video entirely, just because how do you deal with anxiety is monumental. Like, there are so many YouTube videos on coping strategies, and again, I'm not a licensed counselor, so I can't be here like, this is what's gonna cure you, this is what's gonna help. For me, what I would do to calm myself down from anxiety was a list of rituals that just gave me comfort and distracted me. So anything I could do to relieve the pressure of like thinking about my own thoughts and thinking about my own anxiety was relieving for me. I bought a Nintendo DS and I would always play Animal Crossing, which had a very soothing soundtrack for me. Loved the game. It reminded me of my childhood. I would watch Netflix on my computer. I would go on the internet on my computer, on Twitter, and talk to friends. I would make new shelves on Goodreads. YouTube videos were massive for me. I could give you a whole list of YouTubers that I could just binge watch videos from. I made an anxiety playlist, and that was always really good to listen to. I like knitting because the repetition of it is very soothing, and I could also do it while listening to an audiobook, which was just soothing to me as well at the time. Again, I could make an entire list of activities that you can do just to take your mind off of what your brain's going through. And if you can find a list of things that work for you that just get your head off of what you're thinking about, whether that's exercise or playing video games, definitely don't let it overtake the fact that you still have college work to do and you still have homework and studying. But I don't think it's unhealthy to turn to something that makes your brain go in a safer place for a little bit, because you need to be able to get through the day. If you have any additional questions or concerns, or you want me to clarify anything, I'm really just here as a resource for you, because if you're in the same boat that I was freshman year and you don't know how you're gonna do it, I'm living, breathing proof that you can do it, and I guarantee you it gets better. Every day that goes by, it gets easier. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope that you learned something new in this video, or you feel a little bit more empowered to do something you were scared of. It's still gonna be scary, and that's okay, but you'll be able to get through it. If anything, it's only 4 years of your life, and they go by fast. Bye everyone!